Welcome to Caregiver SOS On Air, presented by the WellMed Charitable Foundation, with nationally known gerontologist Carol Zernail and award-winning veteran broadcaster Ron Aaron. This program provides health, wellness, and other information for caregivers who are vital to the health and well-being of so many people across our country. And now, here are your hosts, Ron Aaron and Carol Zernail.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today on the award-winning Caregiver SOS On Air. I'm Ron Aaron, along with our co-host, Carol Zernail. Carol holds a master's degree in social gerontology. She's got 30 years' experience in the field. She's also the co-chair of the Raise Family Caregiving Advisory Council and executive director of the WellMed Charitable Foundation. And I wish she'd find a cure to the common cold so I can get my voice back. It's a delight, Carol, to have you, a topic that we touch on often, but never enough, caring for a person at home.
I'm sorry, I haven't invented the common cold cure yet. I'm still working on it. Give me time. But in the meantime, I think it's great to focus on caring for loved ones at home. As you know, I cared for my mom who had Alzheimer's, and then my father who lived to be 94. And probably most of us, certainly caregivers listening, can identify with the challenges of either living with someone and caring for them in the home, or like me, being 500 miles away and trying to care for someone.
Well, let's welcome David Walsh. We're talking about care of the older person at home. David is a leading entrepreneur, co-founded Netwatch, and as CEO grew it from a small startup to a truly global organization, employing 560 staff and serving 250,000 customers. A Stanford University and graduate of UCD, David has been awarded many accolades, including Irish Times Business Person of the Month, and on and on and on. He has established another disruptive technology company called HaloCare with a vision to empower people to live independent and healthy lives at home for longer. He's hanging out about 30 miles from the Republic of Dublin, live today from Ireland. David Walsh, thanks for joining us.
It's a pleasure, Ron, and meet yourself and Carol, and obviously to speak to your listeners as well, because caregiving is something that's very, very close to my heart. And at HaloCare, we take it very seriously, passionately, about supporting using technology particularly. And Carol mentioned being 500 miles away from her dad when he was at home. And we believe that, albeit that technology is not the panacea for everything, it's not the replacement for caregivers, the human touch, but it certainly has a huge role to play in supporting people who would like to live their final years in their own home. And the vast majority of us, given a choice, would like to live and spend those years at home, and ideally die with dignity in our own bed, in our own home. That would be utopia. Not everybody goes on that journey, but those who do, technology can play a role. So our mission is to use technology to complement home carers, to empower senior adults to do exactly that, to live a quality life independently in their own home, and avoiding the need as much as possible to go into ER or to go into hospitals or even to go into nursing homes.
Now, I want to pick up on something you said. Why is caregiving near and dear to your heart?
Well, like Carol, I have my own personal story. 30 years ago, I met a wonderful woman, and we were together. We were married for 25 years, blessed with 3 wonderful children. And sadly, in October 2022, Beatrice passed away after a very brave battle, a dignified battle with a very rare cancer called leiomyosarcoma. It only affects 6 in a million people, predominantly women. So there is no known cure. I like to put it that way. I believe there is a cure. It's just not found yet for this illness. So in September 2021, when she was diagnosed after the first round of chemotherapy, we were told at the age of 52 that she only had 4 weeks to live. So Beatrice was very strong-minded. She didn't believe that. She accepted the will of God. She was a woman of great faith. She did not accept the timelines of the doctor. She said to me, look, we've an awful lot to do before I go. And God will give us time to do those things. And I want to spend every single day possibly at home. So I took off work and I cared for her for the last 12 months. We got 12 months more than the most optimistic medical opinion. So I saw firsthand what caregiving is really about, considering that we were together for 30 years and I didn't realize it. She was caring for me for those 30 years. So I have to say it was a very tough time, a very sad time, but yet I truly, truly felt honoured to be in a position to be able to care for this woman who had cared for me and who had given me 3 wonderful kids who are really our inspiration at this point in time.
Now I want to find out more about caring for your wife. First, David Walsh, let's let folks know who may have just joined us. You're listening to the award-winning Caregiver SOS on air, our podcast available wherever you listen to your podcast. And we're also on the radio in several cities in Texas and Florida as well. Hard to pick them up in Dublin, but you can pick us up as a podcast. So David Walsh, you'd never been a caregiver. What did you learn when that diagnosis came down?
I learned that caregiving can be exhausting because you want to give it everything, that all your energy, all your power. I've learned that caregiving can be guilty in the context of you feel you're not giving enough. If you take time off because you're exhausted, you can feel that guilt. We shouldn't, obviously, and I know you have an awful lot of caregivers listening, and it's really important. I think respite is critically important in relation to the carers themselves, as well as the person being cared for. But as I said, it's a wonderful honour to be in a position to care for somebody, a loved one, when they're coming to their end of life. In our situation with Beatrice, we knew it was coming in the relative short term. A lot of people don't know that. It's open-ended, and it could be for years and years and years. And I totally admire those people. But I think one of the things that really came home to me was the need and the role that technology can play in supporting the loved one in the home, which allows the carer to take a break without guilt, allows the carer to breathe, as it were, and just have a little time to themselves as well, because we're not machines, we're human beings, we do wear out, we get stressed, and albeit that in my case, Beatrice was quite young, she was only 52, she was 53 when she passed away, but still it was stressful, and I just wanted to spend every moment that I could with her, and I felt guilty when I wasn't. So I knew once we put technology in the home that if anything happened, that I would know within seconds, and there could be a plan of action put in place.
Talk to us about technology.
I'm sorry, Ron?
Talk to us about the technology you're referring to, what it was, how it helped you, and did you have to adapt it to your needs?
Well, we did have to adapt it because, ironically, you mentioned my first company, Netwatch, which we grew into an international organization. And I left that company, I exited in 2019, and the plan was that Beatrice and I would go around the world touring because we had put in so much into the first business. And then what happened? COVID broke out. And we all saw firsthand the real negative impact that COVID had on our senior adults, particularly in nursing homes. But I truly believe there was a cohort of our society, i.e. elderly, our senior adults living in their own homes, choosing to do that, who were forced to cocoon. Neighbours weren't allowed to visit, friends weren't allowed to visit, family wasn't allowed to visit. And that was a very, very tough time. So we felt that we could develop technology in HaloCare to keep those senior adults who are living alone in their own homes connected, because we know there's a huge correlation between anxiety and mental health, but there's also a huge correlation between anxiety, social isolation, and physical health. A recent report in the United States said that social isolation has the same physical impact on a senior adult as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. So it's real. So the technology we use, there's been technology around for many, many years in terms of supporting people to live at home in the context of emergencies. So if somebody has a fall, they're probably wearing a pendant, if there's something like that, or press a button to seek help. If there's an SOS, or if the person in the home is suffering from cognitive decline, be it dementia or Alzheimer's, we put sensors on the doors that we get alert when something happens outside of the norm. But the technology we're using, and we discovered, is predominantly contactless technology. So the senior adult does not have to wear a device, and they prefer that. They prefer the technology to be doing all the stuff in the background. It's radar based. So there's a wireless device placed in each room, and it's radar based. It recognizes a human being. There are no cameras, by the way, because privacy and dignity is paramount in terms of what we do. The elderly person in the home, the senior adult, is the center point of our attention. So their privacy, their dignity is completely protected. But the technology recognizes a human being. It recognizes a vertical image from a horizontal image, so we know that somebody has fallen and they're on the ground, and then we can put a plan in place. But I think what's really, really exciting as to where technology is moving to is not just being reactive like that when an emergency happens, it's being proactive before that. So it learns the normal behavior of the senior person in the home. It learns how many steps they take each day in the house. And we get a red flag if that drops. Let's say it's 4,500 steps a day, drops down to 1,500. It could be the person is injured. It learns the natural behavior of a person sitting on the couch watching TV. Let's say it's 3 hours a day and it goes 6 hours a day. We get a red flag because, again, it could be that they're less motivated. They may have an injury or whatever happens to be the case. Likewise, in relation to monitoring appliances, again, we know that there's a huge correlation between dehydration and falls. When a senior adult is dehydrated or undernutrition, they get disorientated and falls become an awful lot more common. So we have little computer chips in the home that on the water tap, for instance, the water faucet to make sure that they pull the glass of water, in the medicine cabinet to make sure they took their medicine, on the fridge to make sure they open the fridge in order to take out the food, the microwave, and we have all the sequence of events that's happening. So we know. We don't know for certain if somebody has eaten or drank a glass of water or took their medication, but we can say for certain that they haven't. And that's when the red flags go up, and that's when we contact the caregivers and say, listen, Mom, it's 8 o'clock in the evening. Mom hasn't had her medicine today.
Hold that thought. We're going to come right back to you. And Carol will pick it up in a moment. I'm Ron Aaron. David Walsh is with us, founder of HaloCare, and what he just described, knowing that Carol was a long-distance caregiver, sounds absolutely wonderful for her situation and others. Carol Zernail, our co-host, is here. I'm Ron Aaron. We appreciate you listening to the award-winning Caregiver SOS on air. Well, thank you so much for listening to Caregiver SOS on air. We're delighted to have you with us. We come to you every week with a discussion of an issue, a problem, some accomplishments involved in caregiving with more than 60 million caregivers across this country, but most thinking they are the Lone Rangers. We try to bring you the latest information and help that can make that job easier and more manageable. Caregiver SOS on air takes a look at trends across this country. We provide tips on how to be a better caregiver, and most importantly, where you can go for help. On Caregiver SOS on air, we try to give you what you need to make that caregiving manageable and to provide you with the help that can make your life easier. I'm Ron Aaron. Carol Zernail and I are delighted to co-host this program, and we're thrilled you've joined us on the award-winning Caregiver SOS on Air podcast, available everywhere, brought to you by WellMed Charitable Foundation.
Hello, friend. Hello, friend. Really good to see you once again. Hello, friend. Hello, friend. Really good to see you once again.
Well, thank you very much for sticking with us right here on the award-winning Caregiver SOS on air. I'm Ron Aaron. Carol Zernail, our co-host, is here. We're talking with David Walsh. He's the founder of HaloCare, and prior to that, Netwatch, and we're learning a whole lot about how technology can fit into helping an older person at home. And Carol, as I listened to David describe ways in which they could monitor an older person living at home, I was reminded of the stories you told about your dad.
My father was 500 miles away. It's an 8-hour drive from my house to his house. And there were multiple times that we thought something was wrong. We can't fix it from afar. We didn't know what was going on. And we'd have to just jump in the car and just go there. And so, David, you're talking about some very interesting technology. What I liked about what you said is that it's technology without cameras, because we don't want to be spying on folks. That privacy is so important, but that it's actually in my head as you were talking about radar and mapping how many times the fridge opens, how many times they've gone in and out of the bathroom, how many times they've turned on the sink. Is that, number one, how big is this radar in your house? How big is the system? And then two, you said something about, does it map it? I mean, can I, at the end of the day, pull up a little map of of all of the things that someone has done in the home? What is that? What's that report
It's,
out look like?
Carol, it's even easier than that. So we have our own companion app, which would go to the carer, which is yourself in that situation. And in that app, you get full reports in relation to all the activity of your dad in the home. What time he got up this morning, what time he goes to bed. You will get a red flag if it's outside the norm. Let's say dad gets up normally 9:30 in the morning and it's 12 o'clock and he's not up. You will get a notification through the app, say dad is not up. Maybe somebody should call around him. Maybe it's not you because you're 500 kilometers or miles away. It could be a neighbor or whoever happens to be the case. So it's very, very, very easy. But I think the important point here is that I see the technology purely as the vehicle to deliver a high quality service, because our technology is backed up by a 24/7 care hub where we have nurses and care staff that get the red flags that I spoke about earlier on, the same red flags that you would get in the app. And then depending on how the nature of the red flag that we get, there's a care pathway pre-agreed that we follow. And I think that's the really important part. That is the human touch combined with the technology. That's the answer. My own gut feeling is that technology on its own can be a bit cold. But if you have a professional team of nurses and care staff who are responding to alerts, and at 3 o'clock in the morning, if somebody has a panic attack or if somebody has some issue, to get a lovely soft call, a supportive call, that's really where confidence comes into the situation. Because the feedback that we're getting from the senior adult in the home is that it gives them more confidence to live alone in their own home if they're alone. And for the caregivers or the circle of care, the phrase that they're always using is peace of mind, knowing that if something goes wrong at any time, 24/7, that there's going to be an absolute immediate response and an action plan put in place to make sure that it's not a negative incident.
So describe the technology. How big is it? I mean, the system itself, is it small? Like we put wireless boosters so we can get internet throughout our house. Is it something similar to that?
I would describe it as aesthetically pleasing. It fits in beautifully, right? They're lovely. You're right. They're very well designed. They're very small units. The great thing about it is that they're wireless. You don't have to plug them in. They're battery operated, so they're very, very simple to install. They're literally self-install for the family themselves. And the batteries last for almost a year. Actually, the batteries that we mentioned on the devices, on the fridge, on the microwave, they last 25 years. So it's a well-proven system. We've been operating HaloCare now since 2021. So we've got thousands of clients all over the world, and we're constantly fine-tuning. So we've built, without getting too technical, we've built our own internal software to receive all these alerts from all these different devices within the home. And then we have built in the red flags I mentioned. But the way the software is developed internally, the ORF platform, is being developed by carers themselves as to what they want in it. It hasn't been developed by some really bright guy in a white coat in a lab somewhere. So it really is user-friendly.
What you're saying is that we might sit down with the HaloCare individual and talk about where in the house, what concerns we have, how the support that we're going to get back, and when those alerts are going to get off. So it's really a conversation between the company and with us.
That's exactly what happens. And we might even include the GP or whoever else. If there's a clinician close to the family, they could also have an input into what the solution looks like and where the results go, because all that information that we're collecting the whole time, if the GP is proactive, then when the senior adult goes under annual checks, instead of getting a balance sheet on one particular day, they have a profit and loss for the last 6 months, because they can see exactly the behaviors, what happened, the amount of steps they're taking, their sleep patterns. That's very important as well. It measures their sleep patterns. It measures, it alerts us at how often they get up at night to go to the toilet, to go to the bathroom. So you've got this incredibly rich information in relation to what happened over the last 6 months, as opposed to just taking a blood test on a particular day. It's far, far more proactive. And I know AI is the big buzzword now. We always talked about AI. We do need to be careful from a GDPR perspective with AI, and I'm sure that the regulators will catch up It's moving to the industry is far, far ahead at the moment. But assuming the regulators catch up and there's going to be solid rules there, I think AI is going to play an incredible role in terms of predicting what's going to happen. Not just reacting to emergencies, not just being proactive like we have, but imagine all the data that we're getting. And AI is going to tell us that within 95% chance that Mrs. Smith is going to have a fall in the next 24 hours. Let's do something about it. That's where it's moving to. And I think it'll happen very soon.
Now, do these?
That's amazing. When I'm thinking about what you're saying, I mean, this does impact, like, we're trying to improve our healthcare systems. And so we could reduce medical costs if we can prevent many things. And caregivers right there on the front line, if they're armed with what's really going on with the person they're caring for, and the primary care physician is also armed with changes in behavior and diet, movement, all of that, then we really get a full picture that can influence medical costs.
Look, here in Ireland, we did a project with the Department of Health. 100 participants on the project. They analysed their behaviours for the 6 months before they came onto our programme and the 12 months after it, comparing the two. And to your point, Carol, the results are dramatic in terms of the reduction of ambulance call-outs, the reduction in terms of ER admissions, hospital admissions. It's just incredible the role that technology can play. But I will say it again, technology is not the panacea for everything. It's not, right? It has, in the jigsaw of healthcare, it has a huge role to play. All the other factors come into it as well, and there is no substitute for that human touch.
Where does HaloCare go next?
I think, well, we're in the States. Ron, you would like to hear, we only started 2 weeks ago. We wanted to prove, as we did with Netwatch, I wanted to prove the concept right in Europe here. We're dealing with the Irish government, as I mentioned. So we're starting in the US now in a very serious way. And I think it's just the value proposition, to use that phrase, a business proposition, which we shouldn't use, but it's been incredibly well received for the exact same reasons we're talking about here. Because we know this, and this is not just a US problem, it's a global problem. There's a huge shortage in professional home care workers and professional healthcare workers. And we know this. All the demographics in every country around the world, we're living longer. We're getting chronic illnesses earlier in life. So there's a need for intervention earlier for longer, but the people aren't there to supply the care. So again, the technology is going to fill part of that gap.
So David, I can imagine caregivers who are listening are saying, I want that. I need that. What are the odds they can begin to access HaloCare in San Francisco, Cincinnati, San Antonio, Chicago, New York, you name it?
Well, yeah, no problem. If they go on to Netwatch, sorry, I'm going to say Netwatch, my old company, HaloCare USA, it'll bring them into the website and they get all the information there. If they inquire, we can formulate a solution for them online, give them indications of what costs might look like, and then it can be installed. We tick all the boxes from a regulatory perspective in the US the same way as we did in Europe. So there's no issue there.
So I'm curious, do you think that someday the health plans, in the United States, everything's funded through health plans, the insurance companies determine a lot of what we have and don't have in terms of services. Do you see a time that they would say, this is an allowable expense because it does, it's a preventive measures and it's safety measures for the patients?
Absolutely. That has to be the future. And it's a win-win scenario. It's win for the insurance companies, the health insurance companies. It's win for the senior adults themselves, and it's a win for their caregivers, their family members, their circle of care. Because we know this again. If we can keep senior adults out of ER, out of hospitals, they thrive much better in their own home.
Got about 30 seconds left. What would Beatrice think about HaloCare?
I think, Beatrice was around when we started it. In the start, we beefed it out after that in terms of expansion. She would love it because she herself, our very, very first customer was her auntie of the same name, Beatrice. And she's still alive. She's 53. She's 93 years of age and she loves it. Now, she's like my Beatrice, incredibly sharp mind. She embraced technology. incredibly well. And that's a challenge for senior adults to embrace technology, but it does play a huge role.
I love it. David Walsh, thank you so much for being with us. HaloCare USA. Google it, and you can find the information. Thank you to Carol Zernail. I'm Ron Aaron. We'll talk with you soon right here on the award-winning Caregiver SOS On Air. The executive producer for Caregiver SOS On Air is Daniel Calderon. The producer is Sharice Pendleton. And the associate producer is Catherine Oglesby. We'll see you next week on Caregiver SOS On Air.
You've been listening to Caregiver SOS On Air, an exclusive presentation of the WellMed Charitable Foundation. We welcome emails with suggestions and comments on this program at radio@wellmed.net. Join co-hosts Carol Zernail and Ron Aaron next week for more on caregiving, improving the health and well-being of caregivers and their care recipients everywhere. For more on caregiving and podcasts of our programs, visit caregiversos.org.